The 1991 edition was held in Japan. The tournament format was one group of four and one group of five because only 9 teams participated. First and second place of each group would move on to the semifinals. The tournament also served as the 1991 World Cup qualifiers, as first, second, and third place of this tournament would qualify to the World Cup. The surprising twist was that China themselves had to try and qualify to the World Cup even though they were the host of the inaugural Women's World Cup. There was a claim that this was the case because FIFA was trying to play it safe. Essentially, they didn't know how fans would respond to an international women's football tournament, so they wanted to make sure that the best teams from each confederations were present. It's why officially the first ever Women's World Cup was named the first FIFA World Championship for women's football for the M&M's Cup. I kid you not. Now, back to the AFC Women's Championship. The teams joined China, Chinese Taipei, South Korea, Thailand, North Korea, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Singapore. In the end, China would make a three-peat after beating Japan in the final. They also tied Chinese Taipei, now both having 3 championships each. These results also meant that China and Japan would qualify to the World Cup, while Chinese Taipei would also qualify after winning the third-place match against North Korea. At the World Cup itself, Japan was left in the group stage, while both Chinese Taipei and China were eliminated in the quarterfinals. The 1993 edition was held in Malaysia, and it held the same format from the previous edition. The tournament was for regional purposes only. Malaysia was joined by North Korea, South Korea, China, Japan, Hong Kong, Chinese Taipei, and the Philippines. In the end, China would continue to retain their championship after beating North Korea in the final, placing them now as a nation with the most AFC Women's Championship at 4. The 1995 edition was held in Malaysia once again. The tournament expanded to 11 teams, and therefore the format was now 2 groups of 4 teams and 1 group of 3 teams, with the first place of each group alongside the best second place moving on to the semifinals. Surprisingly, this tournament wasn't a direct qualification for the 1995 World Cup, as AFC opted to use the Asian Games as their qualifiers. More on that later. For the AFC Women's Championship, Malaysia was joined by China, Hong Kong, Philippines, Kazakhstan, Thailand, Chinese Taipei, Japan, Uzbekistan, India, and South Korea. In the end, China would lift the championship for a 5th time in a row after beating Japan in the final. Alright, so a little pivot. The AFC 1995 Women's World Cup qualifiers were held during the 1994 Asian Games, which was being hosted in Japan. Only China, Japan, South Korea, and Chinese Taipei participated in this tournament. Each team would face each other once, and whoever ended in first and second place of the group would go on to this tournament's final as well as the World Cup. China and Japan would be those 2 teams to go to Sweden, while in the final of this tournament, China would beat Japan again and would win the gold. The 1997 edition was held in China, and it retained the same format from the previous edition. This tournament also served as the qualifiers for the 1999 World Cup. China was joined by Japan, India, Hong Kong, Guam, North Korea, Uzbekistan, the Philippines, Chinese Taipei, South Korea, and Kazakhstan. And in the end, China would win a 6th straight championship after beating North Korea in the final, which meant these 2 teams also qualified to the World Cup, alongside Japan, who beat Chinese Taipei in the 3rd place match. The 1999 edition was held in the Philippines. This tournament was for regional purposes only. The tournament expanded to 15 teams, and therefore the tournament format now changed. It had 3 groups of 5, with first place of each group, alongside the best second place team moving on to the semifinals. The Philippines were joined by North Korea, Vietnam, Chinese Taipei, India, Malaysia, China, South Korea, Hong Kong, Guam, Kazakhstan, Japan, Uzbekistan, Thailand, and Nepal. In the end, China won their 7th straight championship after beating Chinese Taipei in the final, cementing a decade-and-a-half dynasty rule over the AFC Women's Championship. The 2001 edition was held in Taiwan. This tournament served for regional purposes only. It consisted of 14 teams, while the tournament format had 2 groups of 5 teams, and 1 group had 4 teams. The rules to move on to the semifinals were still the same. Chinese Taipei was joined by India, Malaysia, Thailand, North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Guam, Vietnam, China, Uzbekistan, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. And in the end, North Korea would break through and win their first AFC Women's Championship after beating Japan in the final. The 2003 edition was held in Thailand. It had the same format from the previous edition, and this edition also served as the qualifiers for the 2003 Women's World Cup. The World Cup was originally going to be held in China, but unfortunately they had to give up the hosting rights as China was suffering a SARS outbreak at the time, so the tournament was moved to the US and FIFA awarded China to host the 2007 World Cup. So while the World Cup was moved, China retained their host qualification to the tournament. AFC was also given 3.5 spots for this World Cup, meaning that first, second, and third place would go on to the World Cup, while fourth place would go on to an AFC CONCACAF playoff. For the 2003 AFC Women's Championship, Thailand was joined by China, South Korea, Myanmar, Chinese Taipei, Guam, Hong Kong, Philippines, Singapore, India, Japan, Uzbekistan, North Korea, and Vietnam. In the end, North Korea would retain their championship after beating China in the final. This also meant that North Korea would qualify to the World Cup, with South Korea also doing the same after winning the third place match against Japan. Japan was therefore sent to play against Mexico, and Japan would ultimately come out on top after winning 4-2 on aggregate. The 2006 edition was held in Australia after they officially entered the AFC. The tournament went through some major changes. First, the tournament was now officially called the AFC Women's Asian Cup. Second, the tournament format was now one group of 5 and one group of 4, with first and second place of each group moving on to the semifinals. The number of participants decreased to 9 teams, while there were also qualifiers for this tournament for the first time. This edition also served as the qualifiers for the 2007 World Cup, which was being held in China. Alongside Australia, China, South Korea, Japan, and North Korea qualified automatically, while Chinese Taipei, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand all qualified through the qualifiers for this tournament. In the end, China would win their 8th cup after beating Australia in the final. This also meant that Australia, alongside North Korea, who beat Japan in the third place match, qualified to the World Cup. Japan, after losing the third place match, was once again sent to the AFC CONCACAF playoff, where they once again beat Mexico, this time with a 3-2 aggregate score. At the World Cup itself, Japan was the only one to be eliminated in the group stage, while China, North Korea, and Australia all fell in the quarterfinals. The 2008 AFC Women's Asian Cup was held in Vietnam. This tournament was for regional purposes only. 8 teams participated, so there were 2 groups of 4 teams, with first and second place of each group moving on to the semifinals. Vietnam, the host, surprisingly had to qualify for this tournament alongside Thailand, South Korea, and Chinese Taipei, while China, Australia, North Korea, and Japan all qualified automatically. In the end, North Korea would win their 3rd cup after beating China in the final. The 2010 edition was held in China. The format was the same as the previous edition. China, Australia, North Korea, Japan, and South Korea all qualified directly, while Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam all had to qualify to this tournament. This tournament also served as the 2011 Women's World Cup qualifiers, in which first, second, and third place would all go to the World Cup. In the end, Australia would win their first AFC Women's Asian Cup after beating North Korea in the final. This also meant that both these teams, alongside Japan, who beat China in the third place match, would qualify to the 2011 Women's World Cup. Side note, the Australia women's national team was the first national team to win a regional tournament in 2 different confederations. Australia was part of the OFC for a while, and the Australia women's national team won the OFC Women's Nation Cup a couple of times while in that confederation. Now, having won this AFC Women's Asian Cup made them achieve this major accomplishment never before done on the international football level. And the kicker is that the Australia men's national team would accomplish this same feature 5 years later when they won the 2015 AFC Asian Cup, having won the OFC Nations Cup a couple of times before moving to the AFC. Alright, now back to the 2014 AFC Women's Asian Cup, which was held in Vietnam. The format was the same as the previous edition. Japan, Australia, China, and North Korea all qualified automatically as they were the top 4 in the last tournament, while Myanmar, Vietnam, the host, Jordan, and Thailand had to qualify to this tournament. This tournament also served as the 2015 Women's World Cup qualifiers. They were giving 5 spots at the World Cup, which meant that first and second place of each group would qualify directly to the World Cup, in addition to going to the AFC Women's Asian Cup semifinals. Third place of each group would face each other, and the winner, after a home and away game, would earn the 5th spot. For the 2014 AFC Women's Asian Cup, the winner ended up being Japan, which made this their first cup after beating Australia in the final. The 2018 edition was held in Jordan, and it used the exact format of the previous edition. The teams that joined Jordan were China, Philippines, Thailand, Australia, Japan, Vietnam, and South Korea. China and Thailand and Australia and Japan were the 4 teams to qualify to the 2019 Women's World Cup after ending first and second place in their groups respectively. South Korea took the 5th spot after beating the Philippines in the 5th place playoff. In the 2018 AFC Women's Asian Cup, Japan would complete the back-to-back cup reign after beating Australia once again in the final. Finally, the 2022 AFC Women's Asian Cup was held in India. It expanded to 12 teams, and so the tournament format was now 3 groups of 4 teams, with first and second place of each group alongside the 2 best third place teams, moving on to the quarterfinals. India was joined by Japan, Australia, China, Thailand, South Korea, Philippines, Vietnam, Chinese Taipei, Myanmar, Iran, and Indonesia. This tournament served as qualifiers for the 2023 Women's World Cup, in which Australia co-hosted with New Zealand. Also, AFC was given 5 assured spots at the World Cup, with the possibility of adding 2 more spots as the Women's World Cup expanded to 32 teams. This meant that first place, second place, and third place, and fourth place would qualify directly to the World Cup. To choose the 5th spot, the teams that lost in the quarterfinals would then go on to an AFC playoff match against each other in a round-robin style. Since Australia lost in the quarterfinals, and they were already going to the World Cup as the host, only the other 3 quarterfinal losers had to play the AFC playoff, with the team ending on top of the group taking the 5th spot, while second and third place would go on to the Interconfederation playoffs. For the 2022 AFC Women's Asian Cup, China would win their 9th cup after beating South Korea in the final. This also meant that these 2 teams, alongside Japan and Philippines, who were the other semifinalists, all qualified to the 2023 Women's World Cup. Vietnam took the 5th spot after winning the AFC playoff. Unfortunately, the other 2 spots were lost after Chinese Taipei and Thailand failed to win their Interconfederation playoffs, so only 6 AFC nations participated in the World Cup. At the World Cup, Philippines, China, Vietnam, and South Korea were all eliminated in the group stage. Japan were eliminated in the quarterfinal. Meanwhile, the host, Australia, made a historic run by ending in 4th place. I did have to update the 2026 AFC Women's Asian Cup script as some time has passed and hosts have been selected. The 2026 AFC Asian Cup will now be hosted by Australia. The format is still going to be the same as the previous edition, and this tournament is also going to serve for the qualifiers for the 2027 Women's World Cup that is going to be hosted in Brazil. Alright, so that is everything up until now that has everything to do with AFC's nations and their history. And speaking of history, up next I will talk about the presidents of this organization and any national defunct tournaments.